Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I have a lot of I have not made a lot of progress on my reading this month, but I thought I would update you guys, because I personally think that's part of my problem with the readathons is I'm not good at updating people on my progress. And also, I think because I don't have things like Twitter or Tumblr. Well, actually, I do technically have a Tumblr. So Twitter, or I'm not on, like, I can't think what some of the other ones are people that, like, a lot of them will mention. Just the Discord server thing, I don't have that. It's just, like, first off, I'm afraid of Twitter. Discord, I know it's free, and maybe someday I would sign up for it, but it's just, right now, it's just too many sites to keep track of, and I still debate about staying on Facebook or not, so, I think, and I'm also not very active on Instagram either, which I do want to remedy that, but so, right now, all I really is that. First, I decided to DNF Marianne, which is not a tome. It's one that I just wanted to read for the month. It was another Daphne du Maurier book, and it had a lot of potential. Like, the story is interesting, and like most people who read this that feel the way I feel, I love Daphne du Maurier. She's an author that I very much enjoy, and so would probably consider her a favorite. But this one just didn't do it for me. It was, the premise, I mean, it is cool that Daphne du Maurier wrote about her great-great-grandmother, which this is based off of. But it just, the premise, that's all it was interesting. And it's one that I wouldn't mind watching, like, an adaptation of it. But I couldn't get into the writing style. It was very awkward and confusing at times. And I feel like it was a cross between a biography and historical fiction. And as another reviewer had said on Goodreads, I feel like I agree that she should have just picked one instead of just trying to do both. I mean, of course, who knows? We don't know what she was thinking when she wrote this. Maybe all she was thinking about is she wanted to tell her great-great-grandmother's story and get it out there. But so maybe she didn't intend, but it does come off as like a mixture of biography and historical fiction. I mean, and that's also probably because it's based on her real-life relative, who had an affair with, I think he was like a duke or something, and it's all about, and she gets involved in the politics, and she develops kind of a bit of a reputation, and she's not necessarily the best mother, and, like, she loves, and when I was reading, I actually was thinking of Cersei Lannister a little bit. Like, that mother will do anything to protect her cubs, but at the same time is not the best, at the same time is also not the best mother, not the best example for her kids. I feel like that's the vibe I got from Marianne as a mom. And so you gotta give her props for at least caring about her kids and wanting to do everything to make sure they are protected and taken care of, but at the same time, it's like, the choices that she's making are a bit questionable. But she also lived in a world where women, and the same thing when you could make this argument for Cersei too, is that they were living in a man's world where their women were limited and had to, be ruthless and ambitious to get what they want to, even let alone survive in the world that they're in. But so, like I said, it's intriguing, and, if you like politics, then you might find this really fascinating, because it delves into that kind of stuff, which I do like that, particularly historical politics. Like, I don't want to read fiction about the politics that we already deal with on a regular basis, but the politics that, like, of the past, like, of this time period, is very interesting and intriguing for me. But sometimes it's just, like, this is one of the books where it's just, I would rather watch an adaptation of it, like, instead of taking the time to read it. And there were times where I was a little lost, and I was kind of, again, kind of bored. Now, Marianne as the main character is a unique woman, is a very interesting woman. And but at the same time, and no disrespect to Daphne du Maurier's and her great great grandmother, but she's also a woman that you've seen before in a lot of stories like these a lot of historical stories or a lot of fantasy historical where a woman is ambitious and manipulative and will do whatever it takes. But it still didn't take away, my interest in her. But it does feel a little. She does feel very familiar, like you've seen her character before. But I mean, like I said, just couldn't get into it, and the writing didn't feel as rich as her other books. As granted, I've only read 2, but yeah, and so I'm glad. But I'm glad at least I can say that I read most of it. I stopped at 43. I DNF'd it at 43%. It was probably close to 50%. But, and I had chose to read this because it was one that I hadn't heard a lot about, and maybe that's why, because there were a lot of 3 stars or 2-star reviews on Goodreads. And maybe that's why it doesn't, because a lot of people didn't like this one as much as her other ones. But so I guess I'm gonna read Jamaica Inn next. And I will have to look at her backlist and see what other works of hers I can try to find. Although I might have to get them off the internet or hopefully they show up at the roast office when I can finally go up there again. Fortunately, the one chance, that one day I could have gone there, I was trying to wait before I went because there was a chance I could have gone to Books A Million, which I did do today. And I decided, and Books A Million has a little bit better, definitely a better selection. Still not, as I've said before, it's better, but it's not like, like, it's still not a huge selection, but it definitely has more variety. So I kind of was like, do I just go to the bookstore for this bookstore or wait until I can get a ride to the other one because, I'm gonna ride to Books A Million. So I ended up waiting for Books A Million, which I didn't get to go until today because my parents were not available to give me a ride. So, and I will be showing you that book and the book I ended up buying in that video. So yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible book, but it just wasn't a book that it didn't do it for me. So far as like tomes and stuff, so I did figure I better read a little bit, even though Tome Topple won't start until Monday. Tome Topple will start on Monday. I figured I'd go ahead and start reading Dr. Sleep. And it's not as long as Needful Things, and it's also the sequel to The Shining, which I read last year, so I figured, why don't I just go ahead and get this one read, and so that I can say, a friend of Steve, I finally read another Stephen King. Although it might still take me a while, because, I mean, it took me a while to read The Shining, like, I got inspired to start reading it, and then I got sidetracked by other books, so it still could potentially take me a while. And sometimes, like, Stephen King writes about very mundane aspects of the characters' lives that it just gets a little tedious and a little, like, redundant. It's like, okay, get to the point, get to the other stuff, get to the relevant stuff. But although for King, it's, sometimes, as Daniel Green points out in his video where he was like, why you should read Stephen King is, he includes all those details because, he wants you to get to know the character, really connect with the character, get inside their head, know everything about them, and get completely attached to them, or not, or, whether it's from a love for the character or a hatred for the character. So this is the sequel to Shining, where about Dan Torrance and like Danny as an adult. And like I said, I don't think that's a huge spoiler. Like, I mean, so, well, I mean, it still kind of spoils things, but for me, it's more about the details. Like, the details, I don't want to necessarily, I mean, but I also don't really care about spoilers that much. Um, but I think it's more of a spoiler to have, like, to include details and stuff, like, of how things happened. Um, like, how little Danny survived in, in the first book. So, this is, like, Dan is an adult, and his mom is gone, his mom's died. She lived to, like, old age, although I think she ends up dying of cancer. And right now he's an adult, and he's kind of starting to follow in his father's footsteps with some of his bad habits. And he's trying to break those habits, and unfortunately, he struggles with getting a job because of it. So he really starting to follow in his father's footsteps, as far as that aspect of his life. And he ends up in this teeny town, where there's this little, this big, huge model railroad and stuff like that. And he gets a job at the local hospice, where he helps the patients, like, pass away, and have their passing be really easily with the help of this cute little cat. And there's also a character, they haven't come into contact yet, or they have, but it hasn't, like, she's just, I think at the time, just another person. But this little girl, like, ever since she was a baby, can do these weird psychic type things, and her parents are constantly concerned and freaking out and wanting to understand how she can do these things. She's like telepathic, telekinetic. She's kind of like Annie, not Wilkes, not from The Misery, but Annie Wheaton from Rose Red, where she has all these different powers and can do all these psychic type things, except she doesn't have autism. I remember Annie Wheaton had autism, but I think Abra, as far as we know, she does not have that. But she does have all these powers and stuff. And so they have had a few they have had one or two psychic connections, Abra and Dan. But that's about it. So, like I said, I'm making my way slowly through it. I'm probably gonna read a little bit more. If my parents if dinner's not ready after I finish filming this, then I will probably read a little bit more. But I also have to I think The Falcon and Winter Soldier had its first episode last night. I'm gonna watch that. So I totally forgot to watch it last night because I'm actually rewatching Gotham, because it's on Netflix, all 5 seasons. And I started watching season 3. But I didn't start, the funny thing is that I did not start watching those first few episodes of season 3. I did start it last night, but I started it late because I got sidetracked by panel interviews with the cast from that show. So, and it is a little weird watching, and it is kind of like, it definitely is an odd thing. I definitely think people would find it weird that sometimes I will play YouTube videos while at the same time watching a TV show, because then you're only taking in a little bit of the sound of both, because you don't play them at the same time. So they kind of one will over imbalance the other. So I won't get all the information in either the YouTube video, or the what is going on in the show. I won't get all the dialogue and stuff like that. And I was also, like I said, I was watching the show, but also watching panel interviews from the cast. So it was like I was hearing the characters, but I was also hearing the actors who play the characters on a YouTube video. So it was a little weird. But so because I'm rewatching that, I kind of forgot that Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, was uploaded yesterday onto Disney Plus. So I'm gonna watch that tonight as well. But first, I feel like I should get at least read a little bit of this. Because that's my fear. My thing is, I feel like I have to read before I get into a show or watch YouTube, because then once I start going down the rabbit hole watching shows or watching YouTube videos, then I won't stop. I have to watch like another episode of a show or watch another video on another booktube video or something. Like I can't, or an interview that was uploaded on YouTube, I have to keep watching more and more, and I can't. So I need to like start reading first. But today my mom and I went to run some errands. I got some clothes and stuff, like, got some clothes for her because we're gonna do a family picture, and we want to be color coordinated. So we're still kind of trying to get options for what the clothes I can wear for the photo. But anyway, so yeah, we went out first. So I definitely want to read at least a little bit tonight, if I can get it done after I'm done filming this, before we eat dinner. Which I think I could, because my mom is still kind of baking my dad's cake, because my dad just had his birthday on the 10th, but he didn't really have a birthday, because, he was dealing with, my grandma had to go to the hospital, so I'll get some tests and stuff, so I just take care of her, so he didn't really have a birthday, and so my mom decided to go ahead and make one of his favorite meals, and then she's making a coconut cake, which is his favorite type of cake. So hopefully the fact that she's still working on that means, like, when I'm done filming, I can have a little time to get some reading done before then. So yeah, so I'm making my way through this slowly, and then when I'm done with that, hopefully at some point I'll watch the movie. I still haven't really watched. I watched the old Stanley Kubrick film. I watched a little bit of that one, but I was also organizing my shelf at the time, so I didn't get all of it. And I feel like a horror film like that you want to watch in the evening rather than the daytime, even though they're playing at the daytime anyway. But so far I'm liking it. I'm liking it. It's kind of cool to get seeing Danny all grown up. And it's interesting to see how he kind of develops some of the bad habits of his dad. It's the nature versus nurture argument. And there are references to The Shining. Now, I feel like you could potentially read this book first and then read The Shining, because there's no big spoilers or anything, and I don't feel like you're going to be too confused. You might not understand all the references to The Shining, but I think you would potentially get away with reading this first, and then reading The Shining, so you'll understand what of course, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll feel like, maybe if you did do that, you would regret it and be like, oh, I should have read The Shining first. And that does come first, but I think, in my personal opinion, you could get away with reading this one first, and then going back to The Shining. And if you don't want to read The Shining, go watch, like, one of the movies, like there's a Stanley Kubrick movie, and, Stephen King himself made a miniseries adaptation of his book, because, of course, everyone knows that he was not too happy with Stanley Kubrick's movie. It's not a good adaptation to The Shining, and it's one of these things where, watching it just as a horror film, or watching it and, even if you don't remember The Shining all that well, you could still like it and still have a good time with it, even if it's not, it's more like I feel like those hardcore fans that know the book inside and out would probably notice how it's not the best adaptation. But it's pretty good. It's interesting. I'm definitely curious about the True Knot group. It's a group filled with people that have these special powers. And I still don't know what the woman that we met in the beginning, that other woman, I still don't know what her powers are. Like, what she can do. She definitely does some weird, some interesting things. I just don't entirely understand what she can do. So I hope we'll visit her again. And maybe it's just because I don't remember the character that well. So maybe if we come back to that character, maybe I'll remember and be like, oh, that's what, you know. But I love Nothing's Wrong. You know, Stephen King is so good with makes such interesting characters and such relatable characters, like ones that you see every day on a regular basis. Okay, so next, I don't really have much to report on this next book, The Way of Kings. Like, I mean, obviously I have read a little bit more, but then again, this might be the same amount I showed you last time. But, you know, like I said, Kaladin's trying to get these people together to work together. It's so, yeah, I really don't have a lot to say because I haven't read it. Like, I did read a little bit. I did try to, but then, you know, I was falling asleep. So, and, you know, the Doctor Sleep is not as long as this one. This is over 1,000 pages, so I was like, oh, I should focus on Doctor Sleep. And I didn't grab it. I totally forgot it. I should have grabbed it. I am still working on Elliot Brooks's Peace and Turmoil, as well, which that's a really good book, definitely. And check out her channel too, Elliot Brooks. She's fun fantasy. You know, it's her and her husband and their dog. She talks a lot about fantasy. She loves fantasy. It's her favorite genre. I think she almost reads exclusively fantasy. Her husband is a big comic book guy, and you know, they've done a few vlogs, like some of their, you know, their trips, and then also their thrift book shopping. They will do videos on that, and she reads both adult and YA. But she wrote the first book in a series. She wrote a book recently, you know, a few years ago, and she wrote her first. She hasn't worked on this, you know, she hasn't been able to get to work on the second book, and I think because, you know, a lot of stuff's happening in her personal life last year, and then of course the pandemic hit, so she hadn't really. So the second book is not. It's probably in the works though. But it's called the Dark Shores series. Like I said, the first book is called Peace and Turmoil, and it's basically this, you know, this world where there's these, you know, different people are guardians of these magical objects. And sorry, my brain is not working because the tiredness started to hit me again. So I'm like, you know, my brain's not working right now. It is good, and I really enjoy it so far. It's really cool. And I always like the idea of a magical object, you know, especially when that doesn't look, you know, it looks like an ordinary object. I was like, magical objects I always thought were really cool. Okay, so let me go on, you know, so last thing I kind of want to update you guys on is, so like I said, I finally got to go to BAM, today, and of course, once again, my mom requested I just get one book, so I only got one book, but I got it, you know, it wasn't, you know, was not like a cheap it was not like a mass market or anything, it was, you know, I figured if I'm only getting one book, then I may as well splurge. Like, that's what I've been doing every time, so, well, first, I got another notebook. My mom actually said, you know, we were standing over there, she's like, well, I know how you like getting notebooks, so go ahead and buy another notebook, which kind of surprised me, because usually she's all like, if I am like, can I get this? She's like, do you need another one? Because, yeah, I have a collection of notebooks, and the problem is, like, I can't, you know, I have a lot of them that are partially written in, but it's not like I'm not going to just throw them away, because there's a lot of stuff in there that I wrote in there that I don't want to throw it away, so, But yeah, surprisingly, she was like, go ahead and pick a notebook, but it has to be one that you absolutely have to have, kind of thing. So it took me a while, but I finally came across one that I really liked because I liked the cover, and that is this one. This is it has 192 pages. It's Fringe. I don't know if that's the company that makes these or the type of paper. I'm not sure. It says, amazing things will happen. So it has lined paper, which I like. I don't know if you can really tell. And there is a, little folder slot, like a lot of my notebooks had that. And I did mention in the past that I like the idea of having like a, I want a reading journal that actually has like the labels for, the title of the book, the author, your goal for the book, how many pages you want to read, stuff like that. Your, favorite quotes and all that. Like I want a notebook like that. But I can't come on. I almost feel like I have to order it online to get a notebook like that. Just kind of annoying. But I picked this one because, like I said, I like the cover and I like that it's like a spiral notebook because then it will stay open when I put it on my desk and stuff. Like regular books don't. You kind of have to hold your arm on to keep it down. So it's that. And then, so here's the book I got. It's called The Recognition by William Gaddis. So this is one that I recently started watching. This is a channel I discovered a while back, and then I just started watching it again recently. It's Leaf by Leaf, and I did not get the guy's name who hosts that channel. But he does a lot of interesting reviews. And he's another one that does booktubers I just like to listen to him and I think he could sell me anything. Like he could sell me a phone book. Well, maybe that's pushing it, but just the way he speaks about the books, and he recalls all this interesting stuff that I'm just not very good at recalling. Like, I mean, I'm good at like when it comes to movies and TV shows and stuff, but when it comes to books, I'm not that great at it. But so this author, apparently, it sounds like this author has been around for a while. Oh, so he was born in the 20s and he died in 1998. Oh, and he attended Harvard. I'm reading like the whole little bio on the author. He attended Harvard during World War II, but he left in 1945 without a degree. He was a fact checker for the New Yorker. He traveled to Mexico, Panama, Spain, and France while starting his first novel. This particular one was originally published in 1955, but it got a lot of negative reviews. Okay, so this is his first novel, which is really cool. I guess it's his first novel that got revamped. And then his second book was J.R. Now I didn't see J.R. at Books a Million. I just picked this one because it was the first one I saw. Because I didn't see the other one. And his third novel was published 10 years after J.R., which is published in 1975, and then 10 years later he published his third novel, Carpenter's Gothic, which was well received, and he published his fourth 9 years later, called A Frolic of His Own, which it won the book award National Book Award in 1994. So, and before his death in 1998, he finished a novella called Agape, Agape, and that one was published in 2002. And he has a collection of essays, The Rush of Second Place. Okay, so yeah. And this looks at kind of how all the things that are like looked at as beautiful or true or good and I feel like from what I remember leaf by leaf his thoughts on the book and when he because he did read some excerpts from it that the book is very much like a commentary on what the public perceives as beautiful or as true or okay, well, let me just read this. The Recognitions is a sweeping depiction of a world in which everything that anyone recognizes as beautiful or true or good emerges as anything but our world. The book is a masquerade moving from New England to New York to Madrid, from the artwood world to the underworld, but it centers on the story of Wyatt Gaiwan. I don't know how to say his last name. Wyatt, the son of a New England minister who forsakes religion to devote himself to painting, only to despair of his inspiration. In expectation, he will paint nothing but false copies of his revered old masters. Copies, however, that find their way into the hands of a sinister financial wizard by the name of Rectal Brown, which of course sells them as the real thing. Oh, okay. Now I remember. Dismissed. Okay, so this is not what the book is about, but it says dismissed uncomprehendingly by reviewers on publication in 1995, ignored by the literary world for decades after. The Recognitions is now established as one of the great American novels, immensely ambitious and entirely unique, a book of wild, Boschian inspiration, outrageous comedy that is also profoundly serious and sad. It just sounded the way he talked about it made it so much more interesting. And I'm all for trying new books. I mean, usually new types of books. Because usually the only time I get something that's a little different from my usual taste is when I go to the roast office, because it doesn't have a huge selection of fantasy, and it doesn't have that mainstream fantasy authors like Sarah J. Maas or someone. And of course. And every so often they'll have some Stephen King there. Of course, right now they have very little. They have very little Stephen King. Like they they might at the moment they might have nothing, no Stephen King there, because of course they're not taking donations and stuff like that. Which I don't know when they're gonna do that again. When they're gonna start taking donations again. I guess whenever we feel safe and everything, or feel comfortable enough, with this whole, like, everybody has vaccines now. But, yeah, so I'm getting ready to, I want to try this, and it's not gonna be a DNF because I'm gonna make sure it's not a DNF because I spent the money, and this is about, it's almost $30. So, because it's like $29.95, so it's almost $30. There is about well, this is the afterword. 945 pages. If you read the afterword, not counting the afterword, it's 933 pages. So it's funny that, you know, it's not as long, it's not as, it's only a little bit shorter than this book as far as length goes, like as far as number of pages. It's funny how like things look size wise. So okay, so that's all I really have to say. It's not that much of an update, you know. I haven't made a lot of huge progress, but like I said, I feel like go ahead and make a video updating you guys, letting you know what's going on with my reading. So anyway, if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't. Like I said, sadly this virus is not gone, so still continue to wear your mask. And continue to wash your hands and sanitize your hands. And even if you have the shot, it doesn't mean that the virus is gone. It's just you're not going to get super sick if you catch it, because you can still get it. You're just not going to get as sick as you could before. And also, like, it's more about consideration of other people too. So, and I hope you are enjoying your reading and continue to be kind to each other. Bye.